Well, it's a busy one this week, and with there being midweek action, we've put together the League One and Championship previews. We've got 4 games from each division to look into. It's going to be a really interesting set of fixtures coming up this weekend. There's obviously been a lot of talk in League One and the Championship about what happened in the midweek games. There's been a lot of discussion about that. If you want to hear my reviews, go and check out my previous videos. I've got a split Championship one and a League One video, which came out yesterday and the day before. So make sure you do go ahead and check that out. There's obviously so many talking points to talk about in League One right now and in the Championship. So shall we get straight into previewing this week of fixtures? But before we do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content heading your way across the course of this season. There's obviously storylines starting to build and there's teams who are not performing to their capacity. We'll get into all of that over the international break, but shall we get into this video talking all about the Championship and League One? So starting off with the Friday night game that's live on Sky. It's a massive one. It is a really important one. Sunderland have obviously had such an impressive start so far this season, and they come up against Leeds United at the Stadium of Light. Sunderland obviously have been defeated recently, but most of their defeats have come away from home. I don't even believe they've conceded at home yet this season. Leeds United are obviously on an excellent run, but we have to look at the injury list for both teams. It's absolutely massive. Dan James, Ethan Ampadu, Mana Solomon, all big players being missed for Leeds United. You've also got a ton of players being missed for Sunderland. Obviously, Mayenda is a doubt. Ajibola Alessi, another player who's out. Ion Poveda came on during the Derby County game and was quickly removed from the pitch. It's very disappointing when that happens. Now, let's take a look into the last 5 results for both of these two sides. You look at Sunderland, they've won 3 and lost 2, beating Derby County 2-0, Middlesbrough 1-0 and Portsmouth 3-1. But they've lost 2 away games to Plymouth Argyle 3-2 and Watford in a 2-1 defeat. Leeds United, on the other hand, have won 3 and drew 1 and lost 1. Their only defeat was up against Burnley in the league. It's a really disappointing defeat for them, but they bounced back swiftly with a 2-0 win over Leeds United, a 3-0 win over Coventry, and the latest 1-1 draw versus Norwich City. I think these two sides are both going to be up there come the end of the season, and I think if you look at the league table and where they're sitting right now, it just shows how good both sides are. There's just 3 points separating them. A win for Leeds United could take them to the top of the table should results go their way, and you've got to think Burnley face up against Preston North End. Sheffield United face Luton Town and West Brom face Millwall in massive top of the table clashes. Sunderland, their only 2 losses this season have been away from home. They sit 6th in the form table for that, whereas Leeds United away from home haven't lost away yet. So it's going to be a massive game for both sides, especially if you look at the home form here. Sunderland have not lost at home and they have not conceded a goal. It's going to be really important to see what these two sides can do. Are the likes of Joe Bellingham and Alan Brown, are they going to turn up? Is Mayenda going to be fit? He's a really big player for Sunderland. And as we know, Leeds United have an absolutely incredible squad for this division. It's going to be really interesting to see what does happen this weekend. Let me know your score predictions down in the comments. Another one at the top end of the division then is Sheffield United versus Luton Town. Now, both of these sides were relegated from the Premier League at the end of last season, and they've had different periods to start this division. Sheffield United have started really well, and if you take away their 2-point deduction, they would be leading the way. Well, they'd be second on goal difference, but they would be joint top of the table. Luton Town, on the other hand, we have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. They're currently sitting just 1 point out of the relegation zone. Only 2 wins, 2 draws this season. They've been defeated 4 times. It's not what you want from a team coming down from the Premier League. Obviously, they had that big hammer blow after just 35 seconds on the pitch. Liam Walsh picking up that red card. Now, they do have a ton of injuries, which are keeping some really important players out. I know sometimes the foot mob injury dates are wrong, so some of these may be available for the upcoming game, but it's obviously massive for Luton Town when you're missing the likes of Carlton Morris, Mads Anderson, Shandon Baptiste, Taif Chong, some really, really big players. And I think when you look at both of these two sides, they both did adequate jobs in the Premier League, but just weren't quite good enough. I think Luton Town were actually very unlucky not to stay in the division. And if we look at the last five, Sheffield United won 4, drew 1. Their only draw coming away from home against Pompey. Luton Town have drew 1, lost 2 and won 2. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this one. Obviously, the disparity in the two teams, if we look at the home table, Sheffield United sit in 6th, Luton Town in 21st. And if we look at the away table, Sheffield United in 5th, Luton Town in 10th. So it's going to be really interesting to see what does happen with this one. Obviously, let me know your score predictions in the comments. Next up on the agenda then, we have Watford facing Middlesbrough in what is a playoff clash. Both of these two sides are going to be battling it out for the playoffs across the course of this season. Are they both going to get it, or are neither of them going to get it? We know how competitive this division is. We know how difficult it can be to get into those playoff positions. Now, both teams have a massive abundance of injury issues which they're going to have to deal with across the course of this game. And if we look at the league table, Middlesbrough are sitting in 7th, just 1 point outside, and Watford are sitting in 8th, just 2 points outside of the playoffs. Now, there is a massive opportunity here for one of these two sides to get in with a win. Obviously, Leeds United face up against Sunderland, and if Leeds United were the team to win, that would obviously, well, no, if Leeds United were the team to lose, it would open up an opportunity for both of these two sides. If we look at the home form, obviously Watford playing at home, they've not lost a game at home yet, which is obviously massive. Middlesbrough also haven't lost at home. They find themselves 9th in the form table at home. If we look at the away form, Middlesbrough sitting 7th. They've lost 2 games away from home, one of them versus Derby County. Now, you look at the players on the injury list, Dan Backman, Dale Fry, Lenihan, Howson, Smith, some really, really big players for these two sides. And you look at the previous 5 results for both, and Watford will be the more disappointed of the two. 3 defeats, 1 draw and only 1 win in their previous 5. Middlesbrough have won back-to-back games, lost to Sunderland, a draw versus Preston North End and a 2-0 win over Cardiff City, So this is going to be a massive one for the Championship. I think there's every opportunity for Middlesbrough and Watford to get themselves into obviously the playoff positions, with obviously the games going on between Sunderland and Leeds United. It's going to be a massive one this weekend, so keep your eyes peeled. Derby County face up against QPR at Pride Park Stadium as they look to bounce back from 3 straight defeats. QPR aren't doing much better. They're also sitting on back-to-back defeats this season. Now, if we look at the injury list, Jack Colback and Liam Morrison missing for QPR. And for Derby County, David Ozo, Liam Thompson and Tom Barkes. And Jake Rooney is back in training. I can't see him being involved personally, but I do think over the course of this season he could have a massive impact on the squad. Now, you look at these two teams in the table, and Derby County is sitting in 14th with 3 wins and 5 losses. We've got to be a draw at some point, but hopefully not this weekend. 3 back-to-back defeats versus Sheffield United, Norwich City and obviously Sunderland. QPR are sitting there in 22nd. 1 win, 4 draws and 3 defeats. They haven't won in 4 games. They're sitting on 7 points. A win for QPR would take Derby sort of into the bottom half of the division massively, and QPR with a win would go up to 13th place at tops. Derby County with a win could obviously see themselves rise as high as 9th, given what other teams may potentially do. Now, when talking about this game, I think it's absolutely massive to look at the recent form of both sides. QPR have not won in 5. Derby County haven't won in 3. It's going to be, and Derby County have only scored 2 goals in their previous 3 games. QPR just 4 in their last 5. So it's going to be a difficult one for both sides, I think. I think Derby County have got to use that home advantage. Let me know your thoughts on the score down in the comments. My Derby County versus QPR long form preview will be out. It will have came out yesterday. Make sure you go and check that out if you have not done so already, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Heading now into League One, and we've seen the absolute abundance of quality that is in this division this year. And I think just before we get into looking into this game, just look at the teams in the bottom half of the division from 11th onwards. Bolton, Reading, Charlton, Huddersfield, Peterborough, Rotherham, Leyton Orient, massive teams who I all thought would certainly be in that top end of the division at this point of the season. But as we know, it isn't over. It really isn't over. Derby County at this point of the season last year were sitting in around 13th position. They at one point were 15 points off the lead team, and they finished just 5 points away from Portsmouth at the end of the season. Now, as we get into this game, Charlton versus Birmingham, we know the form Birmingham are on. And I have to say, Birmingham have gotten a lot of stick based on Christian Bielik's comments recently, but I think he's only saying what everybody else has been saying. And yes, coming from the inside, it sounds a bit worse, but for me, I think he said absolutely nothing wrong. I do think Birmingham are the best team in this division. I do think if they don't get out of the division, it will be embarrassing. Now, Charlton Athletic started really well, but they're currently sitting off the back of 3 straight defeats, scoring 4 goals. Charlton Athletic started this season really, really well, but they are sitting on the back of 3 straight defeats, scoring just 4 goals in those 3 games. It's going to be absolutely massive to see what Charlton Athletic can do against Birmingham. I think if any of the teams are going to be able to pick up a result, I think Charlton are certainly going to be one of them. The way that Nathan Jones likes to play, his defensive acumen, I think it could be really important in this game. But Birmingham City, 4 wins in a row, 1 draw in there, which was a cup game. I think there's 6 wins on the spin in the league. It might be 7 now after the Huddersfield victory, actually. And they've been really, really good, and you can tell by where they sit in the division. Yeah, it is 7 wins in a row because they drew on the opening day. 22 points from 24. What an amazing season they're having so far. Obviously, you've got Wrexham sitting just 5 points behind, but a game extra. It's going to be really interesting to see where this one goes. You look at Charlton Athletic sitting in 13th. Now, before their run of 3 straight defeats, they were just inside the playoffs. It's going to be really interesting to see. If we look at the home form, obviously Birmingham top that table. Charlton Athletic sit in 9th. And if we look at the away form, Birmingham City are 3rd. They've only played 3 away games though, which is important to see. And Charlton Athletic are in 13th. So this one is going to be a massive one for both sides. Charlton Athletic need to get their form back on track. Birmingham City want to continue that 7-game winning run. Wrexham face up against Northampton Town, and neither of these two sides come in the best form, but Wrexham obviously are challenging for the top of the division. I do personally think that realistically, come January time, I don't think anybody's going to be in touching distance of Birmingham. I think at the moment everyone's in a really good position, but obviously what we've got to counter in is they have a massive squad of really, really good players. Now, obviously, we look at the previous 5 results for both teams. Wrexham have only won twice, one of them being a cup game. They've faced 2 defeats and a draw. Northampton Town have lost 3, drew 1 and won 1. And Wrexham lost their most recent game to Stevenage, which was a disappointing result for them, but a really good one for Stevenage, do not get me wrong. Northampton Town recently lost 4-2 to Bolton Wanderers. And I think when we look at the league table, Wrexham are obviously in an excellent position, but they fell into the clutches of Mansfield Town and both Lincoln City. Obviously, with a bad result this weekend, Mansfield could drop all the way down to 7th, 8th, I think. Actually, no, they could go all the way down to 10th with a bad result if everybody else wins, although I don't know how possible that is. Do they face each other? Mansfield face Blackpool, so they can go to 9th. Which is obviously really, really disappointing for Wrexham if that obviously does happen. I can't see that happening. But as you know, Wrexham, impressive side. They've got a really good squad, in my opinion. Do I think they're going to be in and around the playoffs come the end of the year? Maybe. But I certainly think it's going to be a squad game this year. Obviously, 9 games played. They've started to drop off a little bit. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. You've obviously got Northampton Town sitting down there in 19th position. Now, realistically, they're not in that bad of a position. 3 points puts them up to 16th. So realistically, a couple of wins and they're well back within mid-table. You can obviously let me know your thoughts on score predictions down in the comments. It's obviously going to be a massive week of League One action and Championship action as we head into the international break. Obviously, some of these teams won't be playing next week as a result of that. Shall we now head in to the next game, which is Stockport County versus Wigan Athletic. Now, Stockport stumbled in recent weeks but got back to winning ways during the week with a 2-0 win over Shrewsbury Town. It's been a disappointing few weeks for Stockport, obviously picking up that victory in the EFL Trophy, but within the league they've been very, very poor. 2 draws, a loss to Leyton Orient, and obviously recently that win. You look at Wigan Athletic, they went on 3 back-to-back 0-0 draws before absolutely battering Peterborough in a 3-0 win. It's one of those for me where I think Wigan Athletic are going to have a really up and down season. I think they'll finish in mid-table, but it's going to be one of those full of inconsistencies. Now, Stockport County, on the other hand, at one point they were leading the league table. They now find themselves in 5th. They are is it 7 points away, I think? 5-2, yeah, 7 points away from Birmingham City at the top of the table, just 2 points away from Wrexham, though. So I think most of these teams will be looking to fill out the second place slot rather than trying to take the top spot. I think Birmingham City are going to run away with it. You obviously scroll a little bit further down to look at Wigan Athletic. They're currently sitting in 14th place with 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats, 9 goals scored, 5 conceded, sitting on 12 points. They could obviously go as high as 4th place should results go their way, but I can't see everybody above losing, especially when I think a couple of them play each other. So it's going to be very interesting to see what does happen within this game. I think Stockport have been a really good side in this division. As I've said a few times, they have really surprised me, but they have done a really good job. Louis Barry has been absolutely excellent so far this season. 5 goals in League One. It's going to be interesting to see if he can carry on his scintillating form for the rest of the season. And to close out, I felt it was massive to talk about Bolton Wanderers versus Shrewsbury Town. Bolton Wanderers at the Tough Sheet Community Stadium face up against Shrewsbury. Bolton obviously went on that really, really poor run, but now find themselves with 3 wins in a row in the league campaign. They obviously did lose to Arsenal in between, so realistically they're not on a winning run, but a really good performance from them in midweek against Northampton Town, 4-2 victory. They obviously beat Crawley the week before that, and then obviously the 5-1 defeat to Arsenal will let them off. It is Arsenal. They beat Reading 5-2, and obviously that massive 4-0 defeat to Huddersfield, where I really thought Ian Evatt was going to lose his job. I personally think if they hadn't have beat Reading, I think he would have been out of a job. You look at Shrewsbury Town's results and they're not great, are they? Just a 1-1 draw with Rotherham to talk about. Disappointing for them, but obviously they're not expected to be at the top end of the division. Bolton have got themselves from relegation threatened to 11th in the division after 3 back-to-back wins in the league. Shrewsbury Town are there in 23rd place, only ahead of Cambridge by 3 points, and Cambridge face up against Exeter this weekend. It's going to be very interesting to see what does happen. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, we've been through some big games in League One and the Championship. Let me know your score predictions down in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you smash that like button as well. Working really hard on the channel to try and hit 1.4 thousand subscribers, and I know that you can help me by hitting that red button and turning on that notification bell. I've been Lewis. I hope you've enjoyed this content, and I'll catch you in the next one. Find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.